It was Stammer time at Rogers Arena. Steven Stamkos scores a pair. The Nashville Predators down the Vancouver Canucks 5-3. Another disappointing result in front of the home fans. Lots to talk about, and we'll do that right now on Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios, downtown Vancouver on this Grey Cup Sunday. We're talking hockey, though, here on Rink Wide, as we always do. It's Jeff and it's Irf, as we were with you last night after a Canucks victory over the Chicago Blackhawks. First back-to-backs of the season. Not only back-to-back, 3-4, 4-6 for the Vancouver Canucks. Maybe that factors into it, but all at home here. And Irf, back-to-back weekend that included a visit from the two worst teams in the National Hockey League by the standings. Now, we all think that the Predators are going to get it figured out, and if they get Steven Stamkos going and the power play going the way it was going at Rogers Arena, they will win more hockey games than they have to this point. But this is another frustrating one for the Canucks, who have 3 wins now in 10 games in front of the paying customers.
Yeah, they kind of looked out of sorts from the very beginning, Jeff, no shots, barely any shots in the first period. And then things kind of opened up later on in the game. The issues of the two defensemen that we always talk about, the Meyer-Soucy pair, again, having themselves an absolute adventure out there. We'll get to JT Miller. I know a lot of people are probably going to want to talk about that. Elias Pettersson, though, coming on his own, being able to get on the score sheet there and continuing his play of late. But other than that, again, Jeff, lots of passengers on this team. There's a lot of guys that, we've been giving the break to, giving them benefit of the doubt, but now it's a little bit of step-up time.
Yeah, another sluggish start. As you mentioned, it took them 11 minutes to get the first shot on goal. You would have thought the bounce back after the Islanders' performance, it was the Blackhawks. They weren't terrific last night, but they did what they had to do. They got better as the night wore on, and thought maybe they could carry that one into this one against a Nashville team that's just been brutal on the road. Came in with 1 road win all season, so they doubled their total there and took the Canucks 11 minutes to get a shot on goal. That was Carson Soucy with the first shot of the hockey game. And in saying all of that, they get out of the first period in a 1-1 tie and then take a lead midway through the second. Halfway through this hockey game, the Canucks are ahead. And unlike 24 hours earlier, where they were able to seize momentum and continue to stack some shifts, they ran into penalty problems, and the Predators made them pay. And Stamkos has made a career of that. I know it hasn't been a great start for him. He came into the night with 4 goals. He's up to 6 now on the season. But you give him time and space with the man advantage. He's been as lethal as just about anybody not named Alex Ovechkin over the last decade and a half in the National Hockey League on the power play. And Stammer looked like old-time Steven Stamkos, who's had a ton of success in Vancouver, scored his 500th National Hockey League goal when he was a member of the Tampa Lightning, of course, now with the Preds. And as we said, it's been a slow start for the Nashville Predators, but maybe a win like this one, I'll put a little spring in their step. But we won't worry too much about the Preds. I mean, we'll talk a little more about them when we get to the 3 stars. But yeah, I mean, the issues are many with this Vancouver Hockey Club that's 9-5-3 overall. We keep saying, the record itself, not terrible, but the process has been on way too many nights. And it's kind of wild to me, Irv, to think 10 home games. They're 3-4-3 now. So that's 3 wins and 7 losses. And you take 5 of the 10 games, they've given up 5 goals or more. They're getting bleached on home ice. It's not just, unlucky bounce here or, 1-goal game or a goalie standing on his head. These teams are coming in and just pumping the Vancouver Canucks. So the defensive issues are on full display. And then you couple that with so many guys that have just gone ice cold now. And it makes it difficult, especially when Brock Besser's out of the lineup. Yeah. You've got your leading goal scorer out of the lineup. And, last week it was Pia Suter. This week it's Elias Pettersson. But this is too tough a league to have one guy going and think that you're going to be able to get the job done on a lot of nights. So 3-4-3, just a brutal home ice record. 9-5-3 again, looks all right, but more performances like this one, and there's going to be a lot more in that loss column before too long.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look in some of our social channels. Again, go like and subscribe of everything that we do. Love having your feedback. A lot of people in our YouTube channel moaning and whining about the refereeing and the officiating in this game. Yeah, okay, it's fine. I get it. But the officials, weren't the reason why the Predators score 4 goals against the Vancouver Canucks. They have the worst offense in the National Hockey League, and the Canucks still gave up that many goals. So there's definitely that. You mentioned defensive issues. There's absolutely that. It is that pair. It's apparent. I don't know if the Canucks are going to go out and try and address the need, because the need is now, Jeff. Eric Brandstrom's been a great story, and he's making whoever he plays with better. But that Soucy and Myers pair, it's a disaster. Like they're not good in their own end. Soucy's getting caught out of the place all the time, and you can only have Quinn Hughes and Philip Roenick on the ice so much. So you have to have something there. Now, whether they go out and make a move, whether they hope that maybe when Derek Forbort gets healthy, that's going to be a while. Vinny Desharnais, we're not entirely sure what that's going to happen. They called up Elias Pettersson. We're going to have to see him at some point here soon, I assume. But he's not going to save this team's blue line. So there's a lot that's going to happen there. But again, it's team defense, it's structure. And then, off the offensive end, Jeff, their power play. I mean, yeah, okay, they scored the goal. But even then, the other opportunity they have, they stunk too.
Yeah, I wonder, and I'm waiting to hear the post-game comments of Rick Tocchet about his handling of JT Miller, who had 2 shifts in the third period and played him 11 minutes and 41 seconds on the night for JT Miller. I wonder if this signals the coach cracking the whip and starting with a guy like JT Miller. And what can you do with Carson Soucy? Soucy was the worst on the team by puck possession and analytics. Individual Corsi for 29%. Shot attempts were 22-9 at 5-on-5, and most of this game was played at even strength with Carson Soucy. Myers wasn't a whole lot better. I mean, can you get to the point you're sending a message where you're taking a guy like Carson Soucy right out of the lineup? I can't imagine that you'd throw DPD to the wolves of the New York Rangers for his National Hockey League debut when you had the Blackhawks and you had the Predators coming in here over the weekend. But it just kind of feels like something's got to give. And look, Rick Tocchet has to wear some of this as well. Like, yeah, Carson Soucy hasn't been anywhere close to good enough. Why in the world does Rick Tocchet continue to roll Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers, and then halfway through the game, he splits them up? Well, here's an idea. Don't start the game with those 2 guys together. We've talked about Philip Roenick making 7.25 now. Like, maybe it is time to see if he can hold his own away from Quinn Hughes. You can go back, you can load up, you can have some shifts where Hughes and Hronek are together to try and juice some offense. Brandstrom gives them that option as well with Hughes, and we've seen those 2 guys. But like, what are we doing here, Irv? To just continue to run out Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers as a pair? It's pretty obvious that you're getting the same results night after night after night after night after night.
Well, I agree. I think everyone in our chat agrees, and a lot of people that watch this Vancouver Canuck team do agree. But beyond the top 2 defensemen, and you have Soucy, Myers, what else is there? Where is the depth of defense in this organization? Desharnais hurt, Forbort hurt. When they weren't hurt, they weren't good. You have Noel Juleson. He's a bit of an adventure as well. You have Eric Brandstrom. You can't really put him up into the lineup. You could, but who's he going to play with? Is it going to be a guy like Tyler Myers? Okay, well then your bottom 2 pairing is still not going to be NHL caliber, and that's where the problem is. Look at teams around the National Hockey League. Look at their top 4 defensemen. They are all NHL caliber defensemen that can play big minutes every single night and don't get owned by the other teams, opposing players. Soucy and Myers get owned every single night. Last year was a great story for Tyler Myers, and everything that he had, and how, this coaching staff rehabilitated his career, and it was a career year for him, and so much good came from that. But where was any of that momentum? Where is that this season, Jeff? And it's just not there. And it's not even bringing Soucy down, because he's playing at the same level as Myers, and it's become a problem more often than not. And if it doesn't get fixed quick, this team is not going far at all in the playoffs.
Right. The Predators open the scoring 5.5 minutes in. Zachary Leroux gets his first in the National Hockey League. He circles behind the net completely unnoticed by anybody. Puck squirts out to the side. It was the Myers and Soucy. Imagine that. It was Myers and Soucy out there together. And moments earlier, the Predators had generated a great look, and Lankinen had to make one of his stops on the night. So a good scoring chance followed up by the opening goal. That's been way too common. We've just seen that night after night for the Vancouver Canucks falling behind, chasing the game. But, they even the score midway through the period off a faceoff. Atu Ratu with a nice night in the faceoff circle. Yet again wins 9 of his 13 draws. He gets the puck. Heinen taps it back to Brandstrom, who does such a nice job of creating little space to get a shot through. It's not a heavy shot, but it's an accurate shot that gets through layers. And Aatu Räty in traffic able to deflect it down. And originally it was credited to Brandstrom, but it was pretty clear that it was Räty's stick. So Aatu Räty, who celebrated his 22nd birthday the other night in the loss to the Islanders, has reason to celebrate here. He gets his first of the season, not his first in the NHL. And in fact, not his first at Rogers Arena.
No.
He scored as a member of the Islanders against the Canucks. But Aatu Räty, who had the terrific training camp, a nice preseason, and earned his spot on the roster, spent some time in Abbotsford, but he's back here. And again, the fourth line was out there for the opening goal by the Predators, but they atone. They tie this game at 1. And then for the remainder of the first period, I thought the Canucks sort of had found their legs and maybe were going to overcome this slow start and sort of replicate what they did against the Blackhawks. Second period comes along. Predators, I thought, had the run of the play for much of the second period, but Canucks get a power play, and that was the Elias Pettersson that we remember from earlier in his career, from the big scoring seasons, 102 points. We've all been asking, where's that one-timer? Got the puck from Quinn Hughes, didn't like what he saw, back to Hughes, back to Pettersson in the second time, absolutely lowers the boom, basically rips it right through UC Saros, and Elias Pettersson catching fire here.
Yeah.
Share of the team lead now.
Yep. Absolutely.
6 goals on the season. He has goals in 5 of his last 7 games. And, as I said, there are so many guys, and we'll get into it. And some of the numbers are quite shocking, quite frankly, when you think that the Canucks have 9 wins. We'll run some of those numbers a little later on, the numbers that hurt. But right now, it is a great sign. And this was another, I thought, solid, if not strong game for EP40.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've got someone in here, Joker Smile. He says Elias Pettersson at 11.5 is the worst contract in the league. We'll take your $6.99 because he's worth 11.5 right now if he's going to do this every single night, right? And I think that's what the Canucks want to see from Elias Pettersson. And I think the best thing about that was, Jeff, he didn't take the shot that he didn't like the pass the first time. He said no, passed it back to Quinn Hughes. They played catch a little bit, and he got set up. He got his feet set. He got his body where he wanted it to be, and he fired it home. So when we see him dominating like that, when you see him, commanding play, I think the Canucks fans can get excited about. Long way to go, absolutely. But these are signs of things starting to go in the right direction for Elias Pettersson, and that's a positive for this team.
As Orr said a little earlier, hit us up with your feedback. You see the social channels there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. And, of course, the YouTube live chat. We'll try to keep that one on the rails as we monitor what's going on there. We'll try and incorporate some of your feedback as we go through the night. 5-3, the Preds defeat the Vancouver Canucks. Rink Wide brought to you in part by Greta Bar YVR, and I'm sure it was hopping today with Grey Cup and a Canucks game back-to-back. Canucks homestand coming to an end, but if you're looking for a place to watch road games, there's still the one game on Tuesday against the Rangers, but then they're out on the road for 6. Keep Greta in mind, all the big screens. You got the terrific street food, arcade games. They've got the weekly drink specials as well. They got it all. Greta's located minutes from the arena and the stadium. It's a location that makes it easy to come by before and after the game. Greta Bar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. All right, let's get to the 3 stars in this hockey game. We said we wouldn't spend a whole lot of time talking about the Preds because we want to focus on some of the issues here with the Vancouver Canucks. But a couple of Preds at the top of the list when it comes to the 3 stars in this hockey game. Steven Stamkos made it pretty easy. I thought Stamkos, hands down, was the first star, but the television crew going with Roman Josi as the first star, Stamkos second star, and Aatu Räty as star number 3. So we've flipped Stamkos with a 2-goal performance up to 6 on the season. Roman Josi with a goal and an assist. And so, yeah, he was prominent, and that's not a surprise. Plays a ton, means a lot to that team. It's been a slow start offensively for Roman Josi, but he had a hand in a couple of their goals there. And then as we talked about Räty, it's not just the goal. It's what he does in the faceoff circle, wins 9 of 13. So, yeah, 66% in the circle for Aatu Räty. I like what I saw from that fourth line, with one exception. And we'll get to that. And in fact, let's do that, because when you look at turning points in a hockey game, sometimes there's a bunch, sometimes there's a clear one. I thought this one was pretty obvious. We talked about the fact that it was a sluggish start for the Canucks, chipped away, battle back. They take their first lead of the night at 9:51 of the second period. So basically the midway mark of the second, midway mark of the game, 2-1. Can they extend their lead? Can they take control of this hockey game, grab it by the scruff of the neck? And then before you know it, Tyler Myers with a high clearance. And first of all, there was another one of those crappy icing calls where the puck just rolls slowly and a Predators player easily could have got back. And the linesmen are buying what these guys are selling. And we've seen this a couple of times on this homestand. Whatever the case, bad call, you got to be able to overcome that stuff. But Tyler Myers clears the puck off the glass. You tell me, Irv, what is Nils Höglander doing in that instance? Puck is like head high, let it go, but instead he bats it up over the glass, out of play. It's penalty all day, every day. And sure enough, he gets called there and puts the Preds in the power play. They score, and whatever momentum the Canucks had, it shifted all to the Nashville side right then and there. So I don't know what Nils Höglander is thinking.
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here a little bit, where he was maybe trying to up and move his glove, but puck. That's a tough play to make right beside the glass, and obviously it went in the wrong direction for the Vancouver Canucks. And to be fair to him, I liked his game. I've liked his game the last couple. He's had some jam to it. He's got himself in areas. He shot the puck. He hasn't really hit the net, but he's been around. He's been visible. And then you go make a play like that and put your team down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going on offensively for Höglander right now, but you can't be hurting the hockey club. And I agree. I thought the fourth line had a strong night against the Blackhawks, and granted, level of competition matters here. But there were moments. And again, they got scored on his line, but they answered.
Yeah. And
I thought there were some strides there, but that was just a dumb decision on the part of Nils Höglander to give the Predators some life. And again, this power play strikes. It strikes twice. Stamkos with the 2 power play goals, 12-17 and 19-38. And Roman Josi had the one-timer off the right side, off the rush, sandwiched in between. So it went from 2-1 Canucks to 4-2 Preds in the span of 6.5 minutes. Connor Garland took a late penalty as well, and that was the other power play goal. So the Preds go 2 for 2 on the power play. Canucks penalty kill's been pretty good all season long, but not very good like a lot of the other areas of their game. And so penalty kill couldn't bail them out. Kiefer Sherwood then scores with 6 minutes to go, and you thought, all right.
Could have had 2.
Oh,
the breakaway.
Well, yeah, and that was part of the turning point, too, because he has the breakaway. It's 2-2 with that breakaway. Doesn't even get a shot away.
God, didn't realize where he was,
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but, and then from a sharp angle, just fires wide, and Preds break out, go the other way. So, yeah, close call at one end, the goal at the other. And then Sherwood, I mean, look, it's a decent shot. Of the goals the Canucks scored, I kind of thought that was one that maybe UC Saros should have had, but goes in. Kiefer Sherwood, who has been just a terrific ad, and obviously you knew this was going to be an important night for him going against a former team and a team that kind of lowballed him. He wanted to show them. So, it was another Kiefer Sherwood kind of night. We had the 2 leading hitters in the National Hockey League, and Kiefer Sherwood and his former teammate Jeremy Lauzon. Lauzon ends up with 4 hits. Another 5 for Kiefer Sherwood, so up to 105 on the season. But for Sherwood, he scores his 4th goal of the year. So, this guy's been a terrific ad. 17 games into the season. He's got 4 goals, 105 hits, kills some penalties, brings the energy that the Canucks are looking for. Unfortunately, they couldn't really harness the energy from his goal that made it 4-3. Heinen and Myers get the assist there. 6 minutes to play, and really, that was kind of curtains. The Canucks didn't do an awful lot after that. And they got the goaltender out for an extra attacker. Well, JT Miller's not playing. He's parked on the bench. We saw some Dakota Joshua was getting late shifts. Tyler Myers getting a late shift. Höglander, who hasn't scored in forever. So if JT Miller's not available by a coach's decision, that's just going to make it that much tougher for the Canucks to generate offense. Ultimately, they didn't. And Gus Nyquist seals it into the empty net. 1939, the final goal of the night, unassisted. Nyquist gets his 6th of the season. So Canucks outshot the Predators 6-2 in the third period. They held the Preds to 2 shots on goal.
Yep.
But they were down 4-2 going to the third, and they only mounted 6 shots themselves. So would have liked to have seen a little more offensive thrust, obviously, from the Vancouver Canucks in that third period.
Yeah, Brian Baker's angry in our YouTube chat. Vancouver, just an absolute embarrassment at home. I kind of agree with that. No positives. You guys are dreaming. I think he's talking to the people in the chat, not us, because I don't think we care, really. Pathetic defense and goaltending in the second period. Just call it like it is. These bad losses will cost them. I do agree with the last part. You have to take care of business against your opponent. You have to look at who your opponents are, and you should be beating teams that you are way superior to. And on paper, this Vancouver Canucks team is better than the Nashville Predators team. That's flat out plain and simple. And this team should be doing more with the opportunities that they have. So, Jeff, I'll ask you this. What'd you like about this game? I ask it to everybody. And what did you hate? We'll start with what you hate.
Oh, I want to start with what I like because it's a much shorter list. I like Elias Pettersson's one-timer. And I'm glad to see him back and scoring some goals. And look, a lot of his goals recently have been tips and deflections and blue paint, and that's great. Like, that's a tough area of the ice to get to and own. But I want to see Petey shoot the puck like that, and I want to see more of it. So we'll see if that can be a building block for him. But again, where to start? We've talked about the defensive breakdowns. We have talked about some of the curious coaching decisions. I want to slide the conversation a little bit to goaltending, and Kevin Lankinen has been incredible for the Vancouver Canucks this season. Don't get me wrong here. Like, when you talk about value contracts on this hockey club, he is right up there at the top of the list for a guy that signed on the final weekend of training camp. We all know the backstory. I do wonder, though, if the bloom is off the rose just a little bit. Back-to-back losses for the first time this season. Lost to the Islanders. He had a tough night against the Oilers when the hook came out last Saturday. So he has lost his last 2 starts and 3 of his last 4. Again, when so many guys are struggling offensively, I think you're asking miracles of the goaltender to hold you in there and deliver victories. But he did it earlier in the season. And it just kind of feels now like, yes, it's Steven Stamkos, and he scored 1 million goals in this league. I get that. The first one, I think Tyler Myers out high was causing a little bit of a screen. Second one's, classic Steven Stamkos, the Yossi one from the other side of the ice. Like, those are big-time, big league shots. I don't know if you fault the goaltending necessarily, but they're also shots from distance. And you just, somewhere in there, I think, would have liked to save, but that's easy for me to say in the comfort of a studio like this one. I'm not facing Steven Stamkos, who's made a living of making goaltenders look foolish. But, has there been a drop in performance from Kevin Lankinen here over the last week or so? I would say yes. Then the numbers would indicate that as well, that his level individually hasn't been as high as it was for the first 3 weeks of the season, but some of that I think is due to just the egregious play of the team in front.
That's what I think it is. A lot of it is that. And I want to be clear in saying this as well. When we talk about Lankinen being bad, and yes, Sheeloz is probably going to see some action, this isn't going to be a situation where the Canucks are going to rush Thatcher Demko back and try and get him into the lineup soon. He's still doing his thing. He's still going to try and get back into the lineup when he can. But yes, I do agree with you, Jeff. In the beginning, the Kevin Lankinen story was great. It still is great. They have a guy that can play these games and, keep his team in it. But, you're right. It is starting to wear off just a little bit. Maybe the games are too fast, too furious right now. But this Canucks team is going to have to go with what they have. And it's Kevin Lankinen right now, and it's Arthur Sheeloz. And it's going to be interesting who Rick Tocchet decides to play on Tuesday against the Rangers with all the firepower they have. Rick Tocchet was asked about JT Miller post-game. The question on why JT Miller didn't play much in the period. The quote is, didn't think he was one of the guys that could get us back in the game. Woo! What do you make of that, Jeff?
I think that's a coach that sees that this guy just isn't anywhere close to the fiery, thunderous player that can take control of hockey games. And we haven't seen that guy for a while now. And I guess I kind of want to take the discussion in this direction, Irv, in that if JT Miller is hurt, if he's playing through something, and he himself last week to Ian McIntyre on Sportsnet said, that there's something there that's holding him back. It's November. You had the Blackhawks and the Predators.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing here? Sit him down. If he can't help the hockey club, and it gets to a point where Rick Tocchet doesn't think he can help the hockey club, sit him down. Rest him. Like, and look, they would miss him, but I'd still like to think that the Canucks could have carved out the results they did, get one win from this weekend against the 2 worst teams in the National Hockey League by points without JT Miller. So I don't know. I'm at a little bit of a loss, because if guys practice every day and they show up and they put the uniform on for games, I think it's fair to have some expectations. And yet we have seen JT Miller play at this level. He's become a star in this league, and he just doesn't look anything like that player right now. He's not physical. Let's get into this, because I talked about this. Like, there are some numbers that I think will surprise some people, but they start to kind of make sense when you look at the results here, particularly on home ice. So JT Miller has 2 goals in his last 10 games now. Both of them into empty nets. One in Los Angeles and one last night against Chicago.
Yeah, we talked about
That's it. Those are the 2 goals. JT Miller, he's got some points. He's picked up some assists along the way. But in terms of goal scoring, JT Miller, one of the best players in the Vancouver Canucks, has 2 goals in 10, and they're both into empty nets. Connor Garland. Like, I'm never going to fault Connor Garland for effort and energy and what a terrific start he had to the season. He has 1 goal in a dozen games, Irv.
And what was that goal, Jeff?
It was a power play goal in Los Angeles that Darcy Kemper
Yep.
put into the net himself. Connor Garland hasn't shot a puck into a net to score a goal in the NHL in 3+ weeks now. Jake DeBrusk, signed to score goals here, has gone 5 now, the entire homestand. Has yet to score a goal at home this season. So 10 games at Rogers Arena without a goal. His 3 goals came in 3 straight. We know he's streaky. Well, guess what? It's time to get that streak moving back in the right direction. Nils Höglander, he's gone 12 without a goal. And I know he's playing a little lower in the lineup, but he hasn't scored since the Canucks were in Philadelphia. Feels like 10 years ago now. Teddy Bluger's gone 13. Like, who's going to score the goals on this team?
Mm-hmm.
Brock Besser is out of the lineup. Even Jonathan Karamaki, I thought this was his quietest game back-to-back for the first time in the National Hockey League. Like, I get it. There are factors at play here, but he's playing in the top line. He's getting power play time, and I thought this was as quiet as we've seen him in his 4 games now in the National Hockey League. And when you look at the numbers for Karamaki, not a single shot on goal in this one in his 15 minutes and 6 seconds of ice time. He had 3 shot attempts, but didn't hit the net. And then that brings me, and look, I want to temper my expectations on the kid. He scored a beautiful goal against the Islanders. He scored, but on this team, Besser's out. You're playing. I think it's fair to, like, you want to see him shoot the puck at the very least, and we didn't see much of that. And then it brings you to Dakota Joshua, and I get it. It was going to be a slow build for him. But he himself said, I don't want to get back in the lineup until I feel like I can really make a difference. Well, if he's been back 3 games, it was Hockey Fight Cancer night. It was a touching moment there for Dakota Joshua and the young twin boys that he had met. The Canucks put out a great piece on social. Saw them out at the practice rink at UBC the other day. So this is a special night. But again, if we're just grading Dakota Joshua, the hockey player, it's been remarkably quiet around him for his 3 games back in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, look, you mentioned all of those names, and I think it's at some point when you're missing guys like Besser, you're missing your best goalie or your goalie in Thatcher Demko, and you have other injuries to key players. You need different guys to step up and step in. Nils Höglander obviously not doing that. You're right. You have to put Karamaki in there because he's not playing in a role player role. He's playing in the top 6 forward group. So you expect more from a kid that is a high draft pick of this hockey team, is someone that this organization thinks very highly of. Dakota Joshua, a lot of people saying pay the man, pay the man, pay the man. I understand everything that he's gone through, and we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And like you just mentioned, he wanted to come into the lineup and be ready and be able to contribute, but he's not. And I think and he's playing with his old line mates too now. So there's that as well. Like, you have that chemistry, you have that. He's not doing the crashing and banging. He's not putting himself in positions to score like he did last season. Something's got to give there as well. So if JT Miller's out and not playing well, you have guys like Elias Pettersson. He's carrying the load right now. But beyond that, Connor Garland into an empty net. And, we're never going to criticize his game because he's all heart every single time, but sometimes all heart doesn't lead to things on the stat sheet. And that's what's most important. So there's a lot of searching that this team has to do, but I want to go back to Rick Tocchet for a second. Mm-hmm. And you have to give him credit, Jeff, because so much is made about Rick Tocchet and the way that he deals with his players in the media and the way that he deals about talking about his players and if they're playing well, if they're not. Remember when he talked about Nils Höglander, didn't like Hoagie's game at all. And then he stopped himself before he talked about Elias Pettersson. Right. He's ripped Elias Pettersson in the media. And, JT Miller's been the heart and soul guy for this team. He's been Rick's guy. But the way that Rick Tocchet went out and talked about his guy, who's been his guy, that speaks volumes for him as a head coach. And the rest of the players, I guarantee you heard that statement.
JT Miller, the low Canuck in 5-on-5 ice time in this hockey game. Now, that's going to happen when you don't play much in the third period, but just 9 minutes and 6 seconds. Like, these are numbers that sort of blow your mind when you're thinking about JT Miller and a guy that's been up in the mid-20s in terms of minutes on ice at times when coaches have absolutely ridden him like a horse. And here he's playing 9 minutes and 6 seconds. And the funny thing is, his underlying numbers weren't terrible. Corsi of 61.5%. Shots were even at 2 apiece, so pretty low event, but he wasn't on the ice for any goals in this game. But I think it was sort of an effort level that the coach was looking for that clearly he didn't see. And then when he's asked if it was injury related and says no, he's not letting JT Miller off the hook there. So, it's a little confusing to sort of know exactly what's going on with JT Miller. Just that I think we all know he can and has to be a whole lot better than he has been for the Vancouver Canucks. All right, let's get to the stat that stands out. We do that each and every night here on Rink Wide, and this one I think is pretty telling. The stat that stands out, the Canucks have not won consecutive home games since last regular season. And why have we worded it that way? Well, because they're 10 games in here and haven't won consecutive games yet. Started with a couple of losses to the Flames and the Flyers, and then went out of the road. They came back. They beat the Penguins, but then they lost to Carolina. And obviously what happened to Jersey, we know the Edmonton loss as well. They get a win against Calgary, flush the toilet against the Islanders the other night, bounce back with a win over the Blackhawks, and here this one. So 3 wins in 10 games. But then you track it back to last year's playoffs. And even in the playoffs, home ice advantage, you win the division, you start at home against the Predators. Nashville won 2 of the 3 games at Rogers Arena in that series. The Canucks went 3-0 at Bridgestone. That was the story of that playoff series, was the Canucks were perfect out on the road. And then they had 4 home games against the Oilers, and they ended up splitting those, including a Game 7 on home ice. So you got to go back to late last season. I think it was games against Anaheim and Vegas. It was the last time the Canucks have strung consecutive wins together. And I feel like Rick Tocchet apologized to the paying customer after the Islanders. I get it. People are shelling out huge bucks. There's a reason why there are empty seats in that building and have been almost every night. I think I have to double check here, but I think there's been one official sellout for the Vancouver Canucks this season, 10 games, 10 home games into the season. So, there you go. I mean, that's a stat that stands out to me. Pretty hard to make hay in this league if it's one step back, one step forward, one step back all the time. When you're supposed to protect home ice, and then do what you do. Thank goodness for the road record. Like, we got to push them out of town here again. They got one left to go on the homestand. The Rangers were in on Tuesday, and then it's a weird scheduling too. 6-game homestand, followed by 6 in a row on the road, and then another 6-game homestand. So, and I'm not sure that these lengthy homestands are always a good idea, especially if you're sort of in a rut or spinning your wheels a little bit. But they're going to get tested on Tuesday. The Rangers coming in after a 2-0 shutout win over the Kraken down at Climate Pledge. They get the day off, and I'm sure they'll be ready to go on Tuesday against the Canucks.
Yeah, Canucks fans are smoking on that California win pack when they won, right? Because that game against the LA Kings was their most complete performance all season.
No, they were good that night.
You and I worked that night, and we said that this was a very good hockey team. Since then, they lose to the Oilers. You beat the Flames. You should beat the Flames. But again, that's an easy enough victory. The Flames had played the night before. The Islanders come in and wax you on home ice. You beat the Blackhawks because you should last night. And then here at home against the Nashville Predators, you do what you did and lose 5-3 to a team that has the worst offensive output in the National Hockey League. So it's been a while since the Canucks have put, cliche as we say it, a complete 60-minute performance together. Yes, they've gotten a couple results, but the process hasn't been great. And I think that's the thing that frustrates this fan base the most.
Yeah, and look, if you look under the hood in the hockey game, and the high danger chances, according to Natural Stat Trick, 13-4 in favor of the Canucks. And you'd say, hey, I'd sign up for that all day, every day. But that's at 5-on-5. If you're giving up a couple of power play goals, as the Canucks did here, and we said, their penalty kill's been pretty solid. So this felt like a little bit of a step in the wrong direction. I know Rick Tocchet said they got away from the structure. You've heard that word a few times from the head coach. But we really haven't heard it that much about the penalty kill this season. And yet the Predators make the Canucks pay with the 2 power play goals by Steven Stamkos in the second half of that second period. So, it's frustrating. I get it. We see it in the live chat there, seen it on social as well, and it doesn't get any easier with the Rangers. As we said, Rangers are 11-4-1. Like, they mean business, and we've talked about the first half of this month of November where schedule was full of cupcakes, but it's the NHL, and if you don't show up, you can and will get beaten, and the Canucks are learning that the hard way. I'm not scratching for positives here, but at some point you just kind of run out of things to say. It's terrible right now. Like, it's not good enough, and you wonder if it's going to get a whole lot better. But I do want to talk about Erik Brannstrom. It does seem like we talk about him just about every show right now. He gets the assist on the Ratu goal, and we talked about the shot there. He's got 6 points, Irf, in, is it 13 games, I think, that he's played now, or 14 for him. So not that far off half a point a game. He's tied with Filip Hronek for second in offense from the defense. We know that Quinn Hughes obviously is the runaway leader in that category, but it does sort of beg this question, well, other guys are struggling. Is there a world in which you're prepared to elevate him into a second pair role? Do you think Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote with Quinn Hughes, an undersized defenseman, and Erik Brannstrom, a bit of a Quinn Hughes light? Like, is it getting to a point where you have to try something like that to see if he can handle increased responsibility at the National Hockey League level?
Well, I think increased responsibility, I think you earn it. And I think that if Rick Tocchet is going and putting players into the lineup and they're giving guys more ice time on merit because the guys have earned it, then Erik Brannstrom certainly has done that. Now, whether that means Carson Soucy's got to be in the press box, I know a lot of people are screaming at that, or a guy like Tyler Myers maybe needs a break. But I think the problem with that is if you put Brannstrom up, your third pair is such a liability. Like, are you just running with 4 defensemen? And I like Erik Brannstrom, and Erik Brannstrom is playing his way for this Canuck front office to make him seem like, okay, are we going to try, maybe need to extend this guy because we need him on our team in order to be successful? He's going to probably tie or get near to tying his career high in point totals maybe this season, but a long way to go yet. But I think that when you look at it, a lot of people are calling him the franchise. He's a guy that needs to be in the lineup. He's a guy that is deserving of the elevation, but who comes out? Like, who's the guy that moves down? You have Forbert hurt, you have Desharnais hurt, Juleson and DPD. Like, what are you going to do there? So I think that right now where Erik Brannstrom is, it's a good role for him, but it's only going to increase if the Soucy-Myers pair keeps being a disaster.
I keep coming back to this idea, though, that this weekend felt like the perfect time to insert Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, against these low-scoring, and I get it, the Preds scored 5 against the Canucks, but partly because of the Canucks' breakdowns defensively. Like, I guess I would like to have seen a world in which Erik Brannstrom slides over to the right side. We saw him do it once in San Jose with Derek Forbert, but this felt like the kind of night that, maybe you send a message to some of those guys and sit somebody down. Like, maybe it's getting to that some tough love. If you can sit JT Miller down for a period, like, why do you just continue to trot out the same guys in the same formation that's not working for you? At some point, something's got to give here for the Vancouver Canucks. And I know people are saying, like, when's this management going to make this big move? They're accruing all this cap space. Like, I don't think they want to spend the money that they've accrued to this point now. Like, I think the idea is to accrue this cap space for a bigger spend later in the season. And so, like, I don't get the feeling that you're going to see a panic trade, although it is sort of interesting to note that last year when they made the Zadorov deal on November the 30th, they were in a rut of win one, lose one for a 10-game stretch. They alternated wins and losses for 10 games, which after that start, that incredible start, that 10-game run last year from the middle of November to the end of November, I think a lot of us thought, like, all right, is this the real Canucks? Like, was that start a mirage? And then they get Zadorov, and I think they went 18-2-4 or something in their next, like, something ridiculous in their next 24 games. So I don't know. Like, they got off to a nice start here. They weren't playing well, but they were getting results. But I don't feel, based on the evidence presented here on a lot of nights, that there's this incredible stretch of hockey coming for the Vancouver Canucks.
No, and when they went and acquired Zadorov, it was, we're going to do this. Yeah, I remember the 1 win, 1 loss, but we're going to do this because of where we are and what we think we can be. Right now, what is this Vancouver Canuck team right now? You mentioned, consecutive wins hasn't come since late last season. And we also talked about, just their play has been so up and down. So if you're going to do something, is it going to be one of those panic moves? I don't think that's how this management group operates. I really don't. I think everything's calculated. I think they know what they want to do before anybody. I think they're definitely having conversations of things. They have had conversations of things to do, but it's hard to make deals in the National Hockey League right now. Like, who are the Canucks going to give up to try and get, if this is the biggest need, the most glaring need is that top 4 defenseman? Who are you willing to give up? You just signed Niels Höglander to a 3-year deal. That contract almost becomes untradeable for a guy that doesn't really do that much for you unless he's in an elevated role. And our team's willing to give up a top 4 guy that they have for him. I'm just using him as an example. Yep. So then he gets deeper into draft picks and prospects and things like that. And I don't think the Canucks are going to want to part ways with any of their top prospects.
Predators beat the Canucks 5-3. Vancouver is 9-5-3 overall on the season. So, yes, in today's NHL, they're 4 games above 500. But if you look at it, it's 9 wins and 8 losses. And that kind of feels more indicative of the way the first 17 games have gone for the Vancouver Canucks. 1 more at home on Tuesday against the Rangers, and then out on the road for 6 in a row. They start in Ottawa. They go to Pittsburgh, Boston, Buffalo, Detroit, and I think they finish up in Minnesota. So, I feel like I say this on every Rink Wide. Like, there are some really good teams out there in the National Hockey League. The Canucks just haven't seen many of them. But at some point, they're going to face Winnipeg. They'll face Vegas. They're going to face the Dallas Stars. They're going to face the Washington Capitals, who defeated Vegas in Vegas.
And Alex Ovechkin.
Ovi with the hat trick is tied for the NHL league lead with 13 goals. He, Leon Draisaitl, Sam Reinhart, Alex Ovechkin at 39 with the Hattie down in Vegas. And just incredible. Like, he's getting Gretzky's record this season. And I was one of those that thought it may not happen, that he may just kind of peter out and fall a few goals short. But there's no doubt. I mean, I think he needs 30 goals now or something. He's getting there, and it may happen at this season. The rate that he's scoring, it's probably going to happen sometime this year. I would almost bet on it, which leads us into our Bet365. You like that?
I like what you did there.
There you go. What do we got? The line of the night brought to you by Bet365.
I wasn't right last night. I picked the Canucks and Islanders to win tonight, and obviously the Canucks didn't take care of business against the Predators. Bet365, a proud partner of Sekeres and Price. Canuck Conversation. Jeff, you and I here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, and use the code NATION. Whenever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I think the Edmonton Oilers are going to absolutely wax the Montreal Canadiens. Tomorrow night, Connor McDavid to score, Leon Draisaitl to score. The two of the best players in the National Hockey League. That's what I like, and they seem to do that when they're out east.
All right, well, we'll be keeping an eye on that one, certainly, as we move forward. I would think after back-to-backs, the Canucks probably get Monday off, and then they get back at it, as we said a couple of times now. Rangers in. Jonathan Quick got the shutout in Seattle. He's had back-to-back shutouts, so he's still finding a way to get it done for the Rangers, but you'd think that a rested Igor Shesterkin probably gets the call here in Vancouver, although Quick coming off a shutout, who knows? Maybe they turn to him. So the Rangers only visit of the season coming on Tuesday night. We're looking forward to that one. We want your feedback. We're looking for your feedback. We're asking for your feedback. Rink Wide's a show of the people, and Canucks Army is a website for the people. We're always looking for ways that we can improve. And so in order to do that, we're asking you to take a quick online survey. We want to know what you like and what you don't like, what you want to see more of on this show, and how we can make Canucks Army your go-to destination for everything Canuck. Check out our socials. You can click the link in our chat or go to the show description on YouTube or in the podcast. Fill out the quick survey, and you're going to be entered to win a handful of $250 Fanatics gift cards that we've got to give away. So just a little bit of time. The survey is open to the end of November. Be honest, and of course, let people know how much you like Earth's work here on Rink Wide Vancouver.
Well, people have no problem saying it on Twitter and in our social channels. So by all means, use it. Talk your. You know what?
Gonna be interesting to see where this goes with JT Miller. We've seen.
Where do you think he goes?
Well, we've seen him punish. It's funny actually. It was against Nashville at the start of last season that he parked Miller at the end of the bench. So I don't know what it is about the Predators, but JT rose to the occasion in the playoffs. But here against Nashville, doesn't play. We said 11 minutes and 41 seconds is ice time on the night. I need to sort of somehow get a better sense of how injured is he? How much is that holding him back? Because
Talkett did add that it had nothing to do with an injury.
That,
yeah.
But
he told IMAC that there was something.
There's something there. Yeah. And just to the eye, like, he just doesn't look as engaged He's not winning his shifts. He's not like, think of him on opening night against Calgary, the hellacious hit on Kevin Rooney, the fight, the late goal. They're down. They need a goal in the third period. Who do they turn to? It's JT Miller coming off the wing. Other than the overtime goal in Florida, we really haven't had many moments from JT Miller, and we're approaching the quarter mark, the first quarter of the season. So this idea that you can count JT's big, loud moments for the Vancouver Canucks on one hand, that's not the JT Miller that we've seen here the last couple of seasons.
No. And I know that you like numbers.
I do.
And so we're going to take this one. JT Miller recorded his lowest ice time across his Canucks career.
Yeah.
11:41. Right? And he's a guy that's going to be counted on night in and night out. And I think that a lot of people are looking at this and seeing what Rick Tocchet had to say and say they didn't think that their head coach was going to do that to this guy. And Rick, again, like I've mentioned before, picks and chooses his spots when he talks about his players very carefully. Sometimes in the media and sometimes not in the media, and sometimes he does it. But this time was so glaring because JT Miller was just in the middle of that bench. And, guys, Shorty and Ray were talking about it on the broadcast as well, that it had to be addressed. And I'm glad that Rick went about the way that he did it. So like you said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday against one of JT's former teams.
Team that drafted him, broke into the NHL. I will say that this Miller sort of flashpoint, I think it does, and it's important to sort of bring the conversation away from just the defense. And the defense hasn't been good enough, and we've touched on it in every rink wide, but it's not just the defense that is problematic for the Vancouver Canucks, and this sort of brings it into light now. We ran through the list of a ton of underachieving guys. Somebody has to step up. It's good that Elias Pettersson is going, but PD by himself, not enough. Maybe that's why they brought in a second Elias Pettersson. We'll see if he plays. I would think, again, that's a big ask, especially with the way that this team has managed the salary cap. I got it. Rick Tocchet said before the game, precautionary reasons, but I would imagine that DPD's probably on the first bus out to Abbotsford if it's a team day off tomorrow, right? You're not keeping a guy up on the NHL roster if there are cap savings to be had.
Well, especially if it's a day off.
Yeah. So,
but then you bring him back up, and what are you going to do, though? Are you not going to play him because it's the Rangers and then let him sit until you go on the road? No, I think
in 2 days, Vinny Desharnais, Tocchet said he tweaked something against the Islanders.
I think he got hurt in the fight.
He didn't practice Friday. He skated on his own yesterday. They only had the goalies on the ice, and there were no other players than Desharnais. To see him out there, he looked fine. So he's not terribly injured. And then this was another day. If they get the day off Monday, by Tuesday, he might be an option.
There's one thing about looking fine, and then there's another thing about him just not being, I'm being the same guy that he is every day in the NHL. So I'm
tough. Not a doctor. I get that, but I'm just saying 2 more days of rest. He might be an option. So I'm not sure that they have the same precautionary needs on Tuesday that they did have tonight. They just want to make sure that nobody got hurt in the warm up or something. Someone on the way to the rink, whatever. So we'll see where it goes. But that's life with the Canucks these days. Lots of moving parts. On the off days as they continue to work the salary cap and try to accrue as much cap space as they can. Look, this was another disappointing result. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I've seen some people here debating which has been the worst home ice loss for the Canucks, so we won't go down that road too far.
Not yet.
But when you're embarrassed by the Devils, the Devils have cup aspirations. That's a good team. That's what made the Islanders' loss so frustrating. The Islanders didn't have Matt Barzal. They didn't have Anthony Duclair. They were missing a bunch of defensemen. They had their backup goaltender. And then you get the Predators who roll in here, and they've been terrible to start this season. And for the Canucks to fall behind the way that they did, and then
the Oilers slapped you.
Yeah, and the Oilers, McDavid's starting to play a little bit better, obviously. So I think for me, when you're trying to figure out the levels of disappointment, you have to take the opponent into account, sort of where they are and where they are in their competitive cycle. And then you get a Nashville team that had high hopes with all the money that they spent in the offseason. Look, this is another night that Jonathan Marchessault barely does anything. He got an assist on the one Stamkos goal, but otherwise didn't notice him. We said it's been a bit of a slow start for Roman Josi, just his second goal. And this is a guy that has scored in bunches in the National Hockey League, even as a defenseman. But Steven Stamkos had his good stuff. Something about Rogers Arena seems to bring out the best in him. And he did what he has done so often, and the Canucks just didn't have an answer. The penalty kill fails to kill off either one of the Nashville Predators' power plays on the night. All right, all of this discussion about another Canuck loss, it's frustrating. Maybe you need a big warm hug. Well, if you're hungry, consider the White Spot, because they're all about great, comforting food and spending quality time with loved ones. And they've got this new comfort menu that they want you to know about. White Spot, focusing on cozy, satisfying flavors that are perfect to enjoy with family, available now and developed by the White Spot culinary team. The comfort menu is filled with warm, indulgent dishes designed to make you feel right at home. The new menu, and we talk about this all the time, features mouth-watering new additions like mini Yorkies, the braised beef burger, homestyle pot roast, and backed by popular demand is the iconic chicken pot pie. Bring your family to White Spot for a delicious meal perfect for the season. Visit your local White Spot today. All right. I think that's going to bring an end to this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver. Make sure you're checking out Canucks Army. I got the Monday mailbag. I was hard at work between games here. Put in the mailbag, got some great questions. So we'll have that posted on Monday. David Quadrelli with his instant reaction after each and every game. That's already posted there. So you can get his thoughts after the loss here to the Predators. We'll have the Stanchies, the Statsies, and all of our usual features. Got 3 stars for the past week as well. Quads and Harm will be back with the Monday edition of Canucks Convo, and lots to talk about with the 2 games here over the weekend. Sakaris and Price back at noon on Monday as well. But that is going to do it for us. So once again, we want to thank Karn behind the scenes, helping us out, putting the show together. And let's hope that there's a better result to talk about. But either way, we'll be here on Tuesday night.
Absolutely.
The Blue Shirts are in town. It's always an event when the Rangers are in town. Not like, forget there's always going to be the tie to 94, but there's just a certain star power about the New York Rangers. And we'll see how the Canucks are able to handle them and see how they bounce back. They've been forced to. It's fine to have a few bounce back games throughout a season, but it just feels like every other game is a bounce back game for the Canucks right now, and that's not a great place to be in. But they will chase their 10th win of the season. They fell short in this one, but we'll see if they can get win number 10 against the Rangers on Tuesday night. Again, thanks to everybody that watched us here on YouTube or listened to the podcast. 5-3, the Predators defeat the Vancouver Canucks for Earth. I'm Jeff. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.